All right, welcome to Pass the Mic, Friday, October 4th, 2024, Homecoming Friday, episode 132. Mike Piotti, joined by Mike Gervasi on Zoom, we hope.
Third time's a charm, Mike. This is gonna work.
Okay, yes, your dial-up must be struggling over there. I don't know what's going on. Uh, a big episode last week. The special guest, Senator Darren Camilleri, one of, a great guest. First of all, I want to give a big, lots of feedback came in, obviously.
Lots of
First,
feedback.
first
Yeah.
of all, Gary Bailey sort of called us out on the Facebook page, spiked the football a little bit, said he knew it was coming.
Yeah.
But in all honesty, Jill Burguy took the more modest route, saying that she knew it was coming. She actually backtracked on a little bit, thought that's who it was going to be, then pulled back, and then that was who it exactly was, of course. But lots of great feedback. Do you want to give what you got on some of that?
Yeah, Antoine, pass the Mitch. That was a great informative interview. He enjoyed it. Great episode. I'm glad you guys stuck to the format. This is from Troy. Now, Troy has been a listener for a little while. He's made some comments, and we've been neglecting to get him, give him a shout out here. So don't be afraid to say Democrat. I know you don't want any crap,
Yes.
but being
I said that too. Yeah,
I'll leave that.
It's not a bad word.
Yes.
Nor is Republican.
And his point, and see, this is where I disagree. And this was a hot mic topic a while ago. You guys having these issue-based discussions on the podcast and the classroom is what will help fix the country. I don't know, man. I don't see any good coming of conversations. People's minds are made up. If you can have a constructive dialogue, that's fine. I just don't see it happening right now. Antoine's brother, Ashley Terry, nice. We tried having the senator do a keynote at a conference last week, but their schedules didn't align in support of universal FAFSA bill. Those were kind of, and again, over and over again. Deontay loved the episode. He thought he was so happy to hear, it gave insight to the school system. And then he dropped something else. You can give my recently retired mother a shout out for how good the Metro Airport looks. She was the external affairs program manager, whatever that means. He uses a word in there too that I can't say on a family friendly show, but
yes.
Whatever that means. But she helped with the aesthetics of the airport. So
nice, beautiful airport. That was
Mrs.
definitely
Griggs, yeah, thank you. So yeah,
definitely underrated. We got a big shout out from the UP aficionado Kim that said she loved the episode, and then also gave us props because again, not to pat ourselves on the back because we don't want to do that too much here and pass the mic because we don't want.
Who are you talking about? Okay, yeah.
we don't want the Allen Park group coming after us or anything, or Dr. Rice, but she concurred with him. He when I re-listened to the episode, he had some very nice things to say about us, about why he came on the show and about how much we do for education and that sort of thing. And it was, it's good to hear when you're down in the trenches. And she's second to that. Although Max had a little joke where he said, "Does he know one of you is a librarian?" But but that was nice to see. And then again, the props that you gave too, I really like listening to that part about the props you got out on the house floor, and then for your daughter worked into the episode as well. So I thought that was it was one of my favorite episodes. And then Tom Pack again does a great job. He finds the picture of the Mike of the Week, the fire chief from the Westland area or the Wayne area, right? The guy that got the grant that got the grant. So that was Tom Pack again, always doing great work. I hope he doesn't feel too slighted. We mentioned that we had, previous guests that might have been trumped a little bit by this, but again, I had a blast doing that episode, and Darren was great. And hearing his explanations about what he does and explaining about funding and explaining about, and really, like you said, I think the part that was really great to hear was him talking about meeting with your dad, who, as you said, mentioned wears his MAGA hat. And, and again, I hate to be a broken record, but all politics is local. And, your dad recognizes that and wants Downriver to be a better community and is going to vote for the best person for that to happen.
Yeah, Mike, it still amazes me. And I get sucked into, I'm not standing on my soapbox here. This is just a fact of how this presidential race can just become a game in a sense that, my team versus your team, almost like, with the vitriol of a Michigan Ohio State game. And it's really, these people are much more involved in our lives, our everyday lives. and it's not a put down or slam on Washington, D.C. It's just a fact. They're very distant. They're not going to, Darren Camilleri has been in our school several times, and Kim had mentioned on there how she was near tears because that was such a cool thing that he did. You're not going to
Yep.
get a national politician to do that. That
No.
it just doesn't
No.
happen.
On a side note, it was good to see when I woke up after the VP debate, and we mentioned this at work, that a lot of my most partisan friends either way, and again, both agreed, and even like a podcast that it was a return to pre-2016
Right.
debates.
Yeah.
You can figure out what the difference is.
Boring
But
is
boring,
boring,
but cordial and
cordial.
not insulting. You know what I mean? So maybe that is the future. Maybe.
I don't know. Again, first off, it didn't move the needle at all, nor should it. It's a vice
It
president.
didn't.
Vice
And
presidential
that's the
debate. It's
problem. It was
generally
boring. And
don't.
again, but again, not there's no dumb name calling. I mean, I will go back to like the Republican debates became like these name calling things,
Right.
with the little Marcos and all this stuff. And like,
Right.
it's not funny. I don't even get it. It's not funny. It doesn't sway me as a voter either way, but whatever.
I think it's a reflection of where we are, though, as a society, and to a point, I don't want to say rightfully so, but there's just in general, I think people overall are fed up with politics, and I think sometimes that can come from a lack of understanding, and sometimes it's based on real stuff. We've uh, both sides of the aisle have lied to the American people, really. I mean, forever, but really, post Vietnam, and I think that's the nerve that Trump has tapped into, and he's done it in his own unique way, and obviously sometimes just with abhorrent language that is not okay. But nonetheless, I think he's a reflection of how people feel with Washington, D.C. in general. And that's the nerve he's touched. And so I think we all behoove ourselves to understand that, whether we agree with it or not. So yeah, that's where I am. And Darren's optimism was nice to hear too.
Yes, that's right. Because you weren't buying into it. I am buying into it. And I think that debate sort of helped me see it, that it's possible. You may not
I
agree
don't
with.
disagree that I think that the social media in general, I think they've, my favorite author just kind of wrote this, that we are on, you've all know Harari, phenomenal book. It's about communication, stuff like that. We are all on information overload right now. And sometimes too much information can be a bad thing. And social media has figured us out that, and this goes back to 2016, what our nerve points are, what makes us angry. And that's really what taps us in. And I think that I hope I'm wrong, but I fear that there's no turning back on this.
Oh, well, I guess we'll wait and see. We'll wait and we'll know soon.
Yeah.
It's October 3rd as we record this, and this is coming out. We're last minute here. Back to a
Yeah.
last minute episode.
Yeah.
All right. Any other feedback you want to give?
That's it.
All right. Who is your Mike of the week?
So Kristen, my lovely fiance, reminded me of this. Martin Luther King was born Michael.
Oh.
So yeah, I am. Martin Luther King is our Mike of the week. And, I was going to hold on to that one until January.
That's a long time to hold it.
It's a long time to hold it. Probably could have done the math and figured out if I would have had the week that is his birthday. But I thought, you know what, you never know what could come up in the meantime.
Yeah, we skip so many weeks.
We do, and maybe you'll strike it big on TikTok and you'll leave me behind. I'll have to go find somebody else. So yeah, Martin Luther King, our most influential, certainly, Mike. Period. Right.
Yes.
And,
oh yeah.
So yeah,
beautiful monument. God, are we going to get into this again? Is that a monument then in DC?
Oh, here we go again. Let Max solve that one.
Max is going to be right on our case.
Yes,
I believe it is, isn't it?
I'm not even going to comment. I don't want to get
Memorial.
Yeah, I'm not commenting. I'm going to let Max handle that one.
Oh my gosh. Whatever it's officially called, it's beautiful.
Why did you open this up?
Because I wanted to say how it's one of my favorite, along with the FDR, whatever it's called. God, history dorks.
Right, and I'm like to think I'm a history dork too, but they're
both, but it's beautiful. It's beautiful the way that it's carved, and
those details. Max is amazing at those details. That's what made him a good coach too. He's detail oriented person.
Yes, because if we just give it the wrong terminology, it takes away from how beautiful it is there.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I probably have it wrong. All right. Education. It's funny. We did a little bit of it with the debates, and this was, oh, we got a special guest. We we talked
I looked
about
down for 1 second,
one
man.
second. This is something I saw on TikTok. This was not planned either, the thing. And it was a teacher that was resigning, and that's what a lot of TikToks are. These teachers go on there and say why they get out of the field, blah blah. But this teacher did one that got a lot of pub and a lot of comments on, because the comments that this teacher made was that he felt there is too much empathy in public
Mhm.
schools right now and in teaching. And this is something that is discussed. We talk about this. We talk about this often because of COVID and the impact COVID had on education, uh, the post-COVID changes, and the changes that happened while we were online and that sort of thing. And it was coming even before COVID, though. Really, right? We were getting a lot of PD about stuff of,
Yeah.
which is fine. But have we reached a point that when COVID sort of got brought into that and it multiplied it so much so now that there's too much? So again, we're just going to give our opinions on that. I want to know how you feel about that statement, that currently in 2024, heading into 25, there's too much empathy in public education.
So you and I are obviously really, really far removed from college, right? And
Yes.
so we really probably can't comment on what the state of college is now in comparison to what it was when we were there.
Yes.
You know what
Apples
I
and
mean?
oranges.
Right. So it's really hard. I'll say this to my daughter all the time, and I'll say it to kids: when you go to college, you're not going to care. And so, the teacher following you around, worried about you all the time, is not going to happen. I still think it's somewhat safe to say, in a sense, that if there's a professor, just logically and logistically speaking, if you have 150 students, you're not going to care. Like, you can't. It's physically impossible. But I just, in general, life experience says that we are going out of our way. What's being asked of educators in general, to be psychologists, to be socialists, dear Lord.
So, oh Lord.
So here we go. That was a Freudian slip.
Now
Sociologists.
we're gonna be on Fox and Friends.
Yes, we are for sure, man. Sean Hannity's going to get me on that one. But sociologists, and everything in between, has to do a lot of things with kids in terms of mental health. Frankly, in a lot of areas that we're really not trained in, right?
No,
Uh,
no, no.
So
My educational psychology class,
right.
well, 3 credit hours.
Right. And that's it. And that's, I mean, maybe a psych class as an undergrad, but in general, it's not our thing. And we're having to put all these different hats on right now. And again, we're far removed from college, but talking to certain kids that are there, who recently come back, they're like, it's a different world. It's 180 degrees difference. And the teacher that was so concerned about you is no longer there. I don't know where that line is. I don't know where the line is drawn, but I do know, you know, man, I don't want to. I want to make sure I'm staying in the middle on this one, and just trying to express the point that I want to find a healthy balance. But a lot of times, what really causes kids to really sort of lose their minds, legitimate, you know, often, but sometimes they're kids' issues, right? And you try to explain that to kids that, tomorrow you're going to feel totally different. And I always come back to, when I'm, teaching history, the Little Rock Nine. These were 9 students that had to be escorted around the school with guns to get an education. And that's not okay. And that's a horrible part of society, but like, those are problems. And again, I'm not saying kids don't have any problems. And really, this is a difficult conversation to have, but I sometimes think, is it too much? Are we coddling too much? Because again, whether it's going into the workforce, going in the military, or going to college, there's going to be a lot of adults in their life here coming real soon that just aren't going to have that same empathy that we have. So while I think it's a good shift from maybe what we had and certainly what was before, I also think that this isn't, and I'm only going on what some of the college students have said. It's not real. Like, they're going to go and find out that people aren't holding your hand nearly as much. So I'm going to leave it there and let you kind of jump off from that.
I know you get a lot of heat for sometimes saying, right in the middle or that sort of thing, but I think this is exactly where it needs to be.
It does.
And the question is asked, are we too far off that middle? Because you and I are both, I think we both display empathy. We've talked about it on previous episodes, like understanding why kids miss school, or, those sorts of things, or
Right.
understanding why we have that. But the problem is, and I think you addressed it in a way, is that we can't have it all the way to the point where there is no hardship at all that's ever
Right,
felt,
right.
that there's no disappointment that's ever felt. And I think it's a bad thing if a kid goes through 12, 13 years of public education and never has any disappointment, or has something that doesn't go their way, or misses a deadline and it sort of bites them in the rear, or sort of that sort of thing. Like, that's not realistic.
Right.
And I do fear, and again, I have empathy. Some people say I don't have it as much as you, but I have it. But I also get to the point where I feel like sometimes there has to be consequences. Sometimes there has to be, you just flat out messed up. Here are the consequences. Pull up your bootstraps. I hate to
Yeah.
say it,
Right.
and rebound and fix it and move on. And if you get rid of everything that's like that, we're doing a disservice.
Yeah.
And so and I think what a lot of times you get with that is I think, and again, I didn't even really listen to the full TikTok. I don't, because I could sort of get where it was going. I'm sure it has to do, there's a lot of complaints about, discipline and behavior and that sort of thing. And, but I feel, I don't feel that's a major issue. I don't think that, I don't think that's where it's lying. I'm talking about like things like deadlines and, owning the responsibility for
Sure.
not getting a project done, or, it doesn't do educators any good when goalposts are moved or goal lines are moved to allow, yes, stuff comes up in here or there, but if you keep moving the goalposts all the
Yeah.
time so that somebody can feel good about themselves, it's, I think again, it has to be back to that middle line. Yes, we have to have empathy. We have to understand that not every kid comes from the same household and has the same, maybe the kid didn't have dinner last night, and maybe they don't have Wi-Fi at home to get this done, or maybe they don't have when you assign something like a poster board or something, they don't have the ability to have someone go out and buy a poster board at the dollar store, or even like a craft store. That I totally understand. But the other thing where somebody, we just keep pushing along and pushing along and having no consequences, I think that does even more disservice than not having, than not having empathy. So, it's tough, like you said, and we're going to probably get ribbed for this, for saying, you got to find that point in the middle. You got to
It
find that
has to
point
be
in
in
the
the middle.
middle. Yeah.
And
Uh,
as Frederick Douglass it said, if there's no struggle, there's no progress. And I listen, as a parent, I have to check myself. I don't want my kids to fail. None of us do as parents. Like, I'm not saying anything that's earth shattering here, but at the same time, that's, again, you have to find that balance. Again, I think kids, I hate the constant coddling of the American mind. And our kids went. I mean, COVID was tough. That was a very
yes.
difficult time.
Yes.
And it was something that it was difficult for adults. I can't imagine what it was like, what it would have been like if I was a child and told, you can't go out and play and you can't do this.
Yeah.
So that was hard. But man, we're like, we were back in school the next year. So in
Yes. We
2020,
were a quick turnaround,
we were a quick
thankfully.
turnaround. And, at some point, you're right. And man, I hate saying the bootstrap line, because that's, you and I have kind of mocked that
Yes.
line before, but
Yes.
there is a point that has to be made that kids really have to become. I always hear kids are resilient. Well, this is one area where this is supposed to be teaching life lessons. So
I mean,
it's a
I'll just use
tricky
like
one.
a small example, like the homecoming dance is obviously Saturday. Guest passes were due on Wednesday. They've been out for weeks. I had zero sympathy today.
Yeah.
I don't care how much Susie bought a dress for. We've been announcing it for weeks. They sent a parent square out. They've been sitting in multiple places. It's over.
Yeah.
And like, we use this line. I use this line with our seniors all the time. When, like, at college, there's a deadline to apply to graduate. Like, if you want to graduate at the December's commencement, you have to turn in your audit and get all this stuff done by, say, September 12th. I'm just throwing a date out there. And if you don't, and you missed it by a week, you can't go into the office and say, hey, I forgot this. Can I
Right.
put it in? They say no. You can apply to graduate in April or May of the next year. And that's what it is. There's no call from mommy. There's no nothing. So
Right.
that's why I said doing this stuff is a disservice, and it's the same thing too, like even in athletics. Like, I for one, always have felt that a disappointment in athletics should always, as a coach, I always use it as a good thing,
Hmm.
because, and I tell my, in track and cross country, and then, your daughter swims, there's always somebody faster than you somewhere.
Yeah.
There's always somebody faster than you. And that's, I mean, if you're the one fastest person in the world, you're not even the fastest person in the world, because there's so many different distances. The guy
Hmm.
that's the fastest 100-meter guy is not faster than the fastest miler.
Right.
So it's, there's always going to be some disappointment along the way. All right. It is what it is. Tom Brady even lost a couple Super Bowls. So
And almost lost a couple more. So
yes, yes, if there wasn't some dumb coaching decisions along the way. So,
yeah.
but again, I can see where it gets frustrating for teachers. I can see where it gets, I mean, to me, my parenting style with, and I think we're pretty similar too, that when our kids mess up, we make them own up to it. Like I don't want to violate FERPA on my own kids, but Nate made a bad decision and I'm like, it is what it is. You made the decision and, that's what the results are, that
Yeah.
happened in the past, but I mean, it is what it is. Because at the next level, you're right. If they're going to go on to the next level, it's even stronger.
Yeah. Any part of the adult world, period.
Yes,
It's
jobs. Like,
yeah.
we have this thing all year. I saw somebody complain the other day because like a tardy call went out. I'm like, you tardy. If you're late a few times at work, you're gone.
You
Michigan's an
know,
at-will state.
and I come back to, I worked a job some years back, 20 some years ago, and a kid out of high school, you're out of high school, and it was a good job out of high school. It was pretty good pay. He was a year out and was late, late, late over and over. And the boss told him, listen, you do this again, you're fired. Well, he came in late again. And he said, I'm sorry, you're fired. And the response from this kid was like, it was like, really? It was almost like I thought I'd get a
Shock.
detention or something for it. Right. It was like,
Where's my
so
call home?
yeah. So, right.
All right. Overrated, underrated. So last week we only did underrated. Nobody really commented on that. Nobody called us out on that. I was surprised.
No, they didn't.
And we only did underrated Downriver because we did not want I don't know, Sean Hannity years down the road to find the Pass the Mic podcast when Darren Camilleri is running for U.S. Senate or president and say, did you really say this bad thing about this store in Downriver? So what we're doing this week, we're doing the overrated Downriver. Overrated. Mike, what do you got for overrated Downriver?
Okay, let me preface by so before I get to this, the connection is awful now. I say so. I'm letting the listener know this could be very awkward here in the next however many minutes we have left. My overrated, and Mike, you called it out, and there's a couple other things I was thinking of, but I'm gonna nail it. This notion that Taylor is full of nothing but Taylor Tucky losers, the jokes, especially from people generally from Allen Park, are just old, outdated. Oh, they let you in and you made it out of Taylor and everything. Like, man, you've met some of my friends and just these group of guys, they could look, if I were to tell you they would come from any other city downriver, you wouldn't know the difference and you'd be none the wiser. It's like, we're all similar type of dudes. And I'm so, I don't want to say tired of it because sometimes it can be slightly amusing, but it's overrated. It's an old bit and, oh, you made it out and everything else. It's played out. So that's my overrated.
Well said. And I think like you take any of these communities down here in southeastern Michigan, you take any of these working class communities, there's going to be a part of the population that is undesirable. I mean, the people that just, I don't know, they make bad choices. That's part of every community in the world and every community all over. And then you have people that are great people that make the community worth going for and working through. And there's examples of bad everywhere. All right, I totally agree with you. Again, there's basically good people in communities and there's bad people in communities, and to paint a brush over an entire community, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like I said, if you take all the downriver, there's people from all walks of life, and there's always going to be people that make mistakes, do bad things, and whatever hometown they're from, it gets attached to. So that's a good one. My overrated, it's going to go. I've used this for other overrated things, but for some reason, downriver's obsessed with it. I don't understand it. Totally overrated because they're none of them are very good. What do you?
I think, no, maybe I'm wrong. Go ahead.
It's firework displays.
Oh,
It's
see, I
fireworks
thought you were,
displays.
I thought you were going to go the Dream Cruise.
I was going back and forth between that, but there's
Yeah.
only one really downriver dream cruise. And so to me, but there's tons of fireworks shows, and every year from like June 26th through July 18th through the Uncle Sam Jam, people ask all the time. And it would be different if they were good. And no offense to these local communities, I get it. But we're not talking about like Detroit, where you have or like the DC fire. we're talking about, and again, I get it. You don't have a huge budget. They're not that good. Like, I wouldn't go through all this to go watch these. I I don't understand. And people go to multiple ones. Oh, when's Brownstown? I'm going to that one.
Yeah,
When's Taylor's?
right.
I'm going to that. They go to all of them.
Yeah,
And none of them are that great. No
right.
offense. They're not that good. Like, you go all the way out there, you fight with all these people and all this
Oh,
traffic,
I was just
get bit
gonna
up by
say,
all the bugs, and it's for like about 23 minutes.
do you
Honestly, I've said this before. They're better in the subdivisions.
do you
They're better
think
in the
that
subdivisions.
do you think that they there's any sort of regret that like these people feel like as they're watching, like, man, maybe I shouldn't have.
God, I sort of wanted, maybe I should do like, I wish I could do a poll like every night after one, like on Downriver and Friends, and like grade what you saw. And like, I'd like to know like A, B, C, D. Like, I'm not trying to even troll. Like, I just want to know how people really feel about was it worth it? I don't think it's ever worth it. The crowd, I made that perfectly clear,
Yeah.
but it amazes me. You watch next year. I want you just to go look all, and then somebody every year, somebody, the hero of Downriver, the Lord of Downriver, they comprise a graphic that lists every one and the date, and they share that picture on Downriver and Friends as if they're like some keeper of information, the holy grail of knowledge.
So listen, I do want to say, and first off, I am with you, completely. I one time, one fireworks show. I remember the year, and it was probably because it was, the year 2000. Taylor, home city, did a really
Heritage
neat
Park.
thing. They did it, but they did it and kind of had music going with it, but it wasn't music. It was music playing, like, I don't want to say Kenny G because he did a Millennium Song, but it was like that type of instrumental music with like historical events
Okay.
from the 20th century
Okay.
all the way up to the 2000s. So they do something and then you'd hear it. Was really neat. That to me was the one show that sticks out.
So like audio, or like like
Yes.
the moon landing and
Yeah.
stuff. Like you'd hear like
Yeah.
the.
Just yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. It was really neat. So
Okay.
shout out to
That sounds.
Taylor for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Alan
There you
Park didn't
go.
do that.
Who
Alan
says
Park's got the tire.
who says there aren't intellectuals at
Yeah.
Heritage Park?
Right.
The tire. Are there fireworks that go off the tire?
Tire. I've heard the. Oh my god. Yeah. What else does Alan Park have? Anyway, go on. I'm sorry.
All right. All right. Well, there's our overrated for Downriver. None attached to Senator Camilleri. We saved that for our episode so
Yeah.
that he can show his face in Taylor and at the fireworks shows wherever he wants to, and hold his head held hold his head held high. All right. Hot mic take. What do you got for this week?
All right. I couldn't let this one go. A couple aspects of it, but this Tigers run is absolutely amazing.
Yes.
And in so many ways, you're even on board.
Yes. I watched the game. I watched game 2.
Yeah, this is something. And so I've asked this question before on here, like what 30 for 30s could like our Detroit sports teams get? And this story is still being written. And so at this point right now, I'd say probably not. No,
I mean, winning just a wild card round is
right. But there could be more to come. But I guess my question is, what sports event really compares to this locally? Came out of nowhere. I'm at a loss. Like I 04 Pistons, but they had made conference finals the year before that, and they had a good team, and everybody knew they were going to compete. So that's kind of one I'm sort of thinking.
You probably got to go all the way back to the Tigers, the first run through the last round. What would that have been? 06? Yeah, because they were not very good the previous year.
But that was an entire season, though. That was a season run.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what it was. Still quite a run when you were a non-playoff team and you went to the World Series.
And it was funny.
You beat the Yankees. Beating the Yankees in the first round.
Yeah.
I mean,
and then
Kenny Rogers. I was at that game.
The A's. Yeah, I mean,
whatever he had on his hat.
That's fair. I think that's a good one. They didn't end up winning it, but and Bally Sports got something wrong during the game. They said this is their first wild card. 06, they were a wild card team because they collapsed at the end of the year.
Yes.
Kansas City beat them.
But that was a different format, though, too.
It was. But their stat was wrong because since it came about, and they wrote the year, like, I don't know the first wild card year. Was it 95? I thereabouts. But anyway, I'm almost certain they had the fact wrong because I texted about it. But this is remarkable. It's fun. And I think if nothing else, again, our teams are on the rise. The Lions look like they're going to compete again at a high level. You know, it's early, but they're 3-1, and their one loss was just they couldn't score in the red zone. You know, the Red Wings came on the cusp of making the playoffs, kind of had to collapse to not make it, but they seem to be there. You know, but this it has been so long since our teams gave us something really to cheer about on this level. Again, Lions notwithstanding a year ago, because that was an amazing run too. But this is great, man. And so, but it's hard to find something. Maybe you're right. Maybe it is the '06 Tigers.
And that is, and man, there were people watching the games in Comerica. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. All right, my hot mic take. Are you familiar with the Netflix series Monster?
I am not.
Okay. Well, it's basically last year at this time, it's not a documentary, it's a movie, but it's based on real events. So last year it was Jeffrey Dahmer and his whole
Mm-hmm.
his crimes up in the
Sure.
Wisconsin area. This year, and it's out right now. I didn't watch the Jeffrey Dahmer one because I never really was interested in his story anyway. It was
Mhm.
way too much for me. I didn't want anything to do with it. This year, it's the Menendez brothers, and it is like taking social media by storm. The younger generation and our generation are seeing it very differently.
Mhm.
Do you remember the story?
I do. I do.
It was
Yes.
all, that was a crazy time when you think about it, these years, like that was late 80s, early
Do
90s
you
is
know
when,
the basketball card story
yes,
that
the Mark
that's so
Jackson.
crazy to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's such
And
a
so
crazy.
so I haven't watched it yet. I've just been seeing clips of it. I don't really have time this week with homecoming going on, but I
Sure.
plan to watch it. Milli Vanilli songs are hot on this now that
Oh
these kids
yeah.
are rediscovering Milli Vanilli because
Sure.
that's on the soundtrack. And there's so many but I've been Googling stuff because I see clips and I'm like, there's a scene in the movie where the mom rips the one boy's, he had a toupee, which I didn't even know, off his head at dinner. You know, and the whole premise of the story is they claim to be abused.
Mm-hmm.
They were found guilty after a mistrial. Spoiler alert. Uh, they were found guilty after the first trial being a mistrial, a hung jury, of murder in California, and they had what's called I think special circumstances because they were hiding in wait, and that means you automatically are either death or life without parole. And like when I was watching, so I started reading stuff up on it, and the murders were brutal, and
Mm-hmm.
they acknowledged they did it. But like I talked to my wife, and I'm like, well, why did they kill the mom? You know, like if the dad was this horrible, like they said, why'd they kill the mom too? And and there's a lot of, again, I don't know. I'm not a judge. I'm not a jury, but I'm gonna watch it. Seems pretty good.
Okay.
I don't know if I don't know if you're a Netflix guy or the
Oh,
clips
I
seem,
am.
and and I don't know. I guess as I read the stuff on it, and they're still locked up in prison. I mean, they're still life without parole. But some interesting, but again, like my daughter, I reached out to her and was like, why are these guys even in prison for what happened? And then I sort of went back. So that's like the boomer versus, Gen Z. I'm like, well, I go, if you read the story and what they did, I go, I'm not saying if they're, again, I'm not saying they're lying or whatever, but it's an odd story. After they did
Yeah.
kill them, they went out and
Right.
spent a ton of money. They did a lot of weird things, and interesting story. I mean, sometimes real life is what better than fiction or
Sure.
stranger than fiction.
Stranger in
So,
fiction.
all right, so sports picks: Tigers versus Cleveland. Hey, three AL Central teams
Yeah.
going at it.
Crazy, isn't it?
Johnny Schreiber's Kansas City Royals still alive as well. Of course, everyone here is going to be rooting for the Royals. I'm sure. I mean,
Yeah.
of
Right.
course, against the evil empire.
Yep.
We talked about this earlier. Tigers, it's a 5-game series. Games 1 and 2, Cleveland, 3 for Detroit, 4 if necessary. 5 would be back in Cleveland. Pick the series.
They're gonna continue this run. Tigers winning 4.
4.
3-1.
Wow. Man, I've been picking against them, and it's been the best thing for them. So I think I'm going to pick Cleveland in 4.
Okay.
And maybe that will be the reverse psychology.
We're gonna overturn the jinx of '07, the Nate Peyote jinx.
Yes, there we go. All right, so Lions, big win over Seattle. Who they got to have up next?
They have a bye.
Oh, they're a bye. Okay.
Yeah.
And Michigan is also
They're on the road at Washington.
at Wall. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
God, I don't know who they are. It's man, that's tough to go. It's gonna be interesting to see. It's always tough, I think, to travel like that.
Yeah.
It's tough. I mean, they're a young team. Washington's not the Washington from last year. What's the spread on that? Do you know, for entertainment
I
purposes
think
only?
Washington is favored by like 2.5 or 3.5 or something like that.
I'm going to say Washington's going to win a close game, under 7 points.
So like 20 to 16 or something like that.
20-17. Yeah, I think they cover barely.
God,
What about you?
Michigan's offense is so. I mean, I have this number stuck in my head. Michigan gets 17, but that means they have to get 2 touchdowns. I don't know.
If USC makes 2 tackles, they win that game easily last week.
Yeah, oh yeah,
You know what I mean? Or 2 weeks ago. I'm sorry.
yeah. I mean, there were other things that happened too that were fluky in their favor too. I mean, Michigan ran the ball and they dominated on the ground in the first half. They've been awful in the second half. As good as
Yeah.
they were a year ago, they've been as bad this year. Um, I'm gonna go Michigan though. I just a hometown pick, or I'm 17-13 or something like that.
All right.
It's
There
a
you go.
low scoring game.
I have
Um,
this. I have the Steelers bouncing back and beating the Cowboys because again, it's sort of like the Royals versus the Yankees. Nobody wants to pick the Cowboys in
yeah, you're
anything.
right. You're right.
So
Wait, we got Michigan State. Who they playing this week? Man, you've totally checked out on them.
I'm a state of Michigan man. I
Oh,
was
at Oregon tomorrow night. Actually, it's
ooh,
Friday night.
oh, Friday night. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's gonna be a tough one too. Both Michigan teams out on the West Coast. Yeah, that's not gonna be pretty either. But they're I think they're a little better than I thought they were gonna be. I'll give
yeah,
them
for
that.
sure. They got
They're a little bit. They're a little.
an
They got
erratic quarterback that can make some plays once in a
yeah.
while,
They
though.
got to clean some things up, and that's going to be expected. So, but
Yeah.
it is what it is. So, all right. Well, there's our picks. All right. Homecoming Friday is tomorrow. Everyone have a great homecoming. And then I only, what do I got cross? It's October 4th. I only got a couple more weeks cross country. Then we'll be back in Studio B.
I cannot
No
wait to
more,
get
no more
back.
connection
This was
activity, no more
awful this
connection
week.
things.
Yeah.
So everybody have oh, by the way, you'll notice the new filming location for me. I'm down in the kitchen. I'm at the kitchen
Yeah.
table.
Why'd you
Yeah.
decide to go there?
I don't know. I just got look at Lisa's little fall theme up there, and then
Oh,
right there, that's Nate and Obama high fiving right there.
oh, cool.
That's the photo spread right there. That I didn't put that back there on purpose. That just happens to be where it is hanging. So, everybody have a great week, and we will see you next week.